Hello everyone, how are you doing today? I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. I am so excited to give you my updates on some products. I don't have a giant pile of stuff to talk about today, but they are all things I've been eagerly waiting to tell you about. I do try to stay up to date on my speed reviews so that I don't have too much to talk about at one time. I just know in the next couple of months after like all my Black Friday orders come in and stuff, I know I'll be overwhelmed with stuff to test and review for you. So I'm happy just to have some things to talk about with you today. My tea of the day is just a classic black tea from Tazo, the Awake one. I didn't want to use anything too fancy today because once again, my entire household is sick and I didn't want to waste my taste buds on a tea that had like nuances. I just wanted like a super punchy black tea since, you know, I can kind of only half taste it anyway. Shall we begin with an item that I keep forgetting to mention in my speed reviews, and it's something that I told you I would update you on. So this came in my autumn FabFitFun box, and I remember just being so disappointed in how incredibly stinky it was when I first opened it. Yeah, even with my sickness, I can smell the extreme scent of eucalyptus. This is from this brand that looks like Nécessaire, the body wash, and of course the eucalyptus scent. Anyway, I told you I would update you, and I do think it's a really nice body wash. You don't need a whole lot of it. Like you can see, I've used it, but I haven't like gone through it super quickly. You don't need a whole lot of it in order to get up a nice, beautiful lather. And even though when I first opened it, I thought it was very, very stinky, the scent is actually quite nice and refreshing in the shower, and I don't find it too overpowering. And I don't find it clings to my skin in an icky way either. I forgot to look up how much this is full price. Let me quick do that. It's $25 at Sephora. Is that right? Yes, $25 at Sephora. I always I don't know. I feel like it's really up to personal preference. I feel like if I'm gonna spend a lot of money on a body wash, I probably would go for like the Sol de Janeiro one, but I do like it. But you know, not in love with it, I guess. But it's a nice body wash. It's just hard to get too excited about body wash. Okay, let's talk about the foundation that I'm wearing. I have been testing this foundation all month. This is the NARS Light Reflecting foundation, and I feel like I got a really good match. I just got a sample of it. This is the shade Mont Blanc, which again, I'm impressed. I feel like it is a pretty good shade match. So again, I've been testing it all month long. I've been trying it over different sunscreens. I tried it with a sponge and with a brush and with my hands. And the reason why I was trying it so many different ways is just because I have decided this is just not the foundation for me. Again, I tried it one last time today, and it's doing the thing that it has done for me all month long. And the fact that it looks really good when you first put it on, and then slowly dry patches start to appear and flake off. And these dry patches, you know, the time of year my skin is a little more dry anyway, but I am more used to a foundation that's got a little bit more substance to it in terms of hydration, so that, I don't know, that just doesn't happen. I wear a lot of like BB creams and CC creams, and by the end of the day it looks pretty bad with all the lifting and flaking going on. I don't necessarily think it's the fault of the foundation. I just think that I have some dry skin. I just know that there's definitely foundations out there that are working better for me. One thing I will say about it though, you don't need very much of it. And every single time I used it, I mean, I had this little sample and I've barely used half of it just because I could like dip my finger in and it could cover more than half my face. It's really, really spreadable, and I do really like the finish. Even though it's light reflecting, I wouldn't call it a super glowy foundation, although like I said, a little bit more dry skin lately, but it's not super glowy like the Yensa or the Makeup Forever Reboot or MAC Face and Body, anything like that. I feel like it does have a really nice finish on it that looks like skin, as long as it's not, you know, peeling up with your dry skin. So I know this is perfect for some people. Some people have been raving about it. In fact, Allie Glines is the reason why I really wanted to try this, but sadly, it is a no for me. Let's talk about the blush that I'm wearing. So I immediately had to snag one of these cute little guys. Oh, can you see? Yeah, Lilah B. So Lilah B, sadly the brand went under. I had never tried anything from the brand because it was very, very high-end and expensive, but I had always wanted to try one of her little blushes. So if you guys can get your hands on one of these, I think they're nice. They are clearanced out right now, which is why I managed to grab one for a much lower price. But the packaging is very heavy. It feels like a flat little pebble in your hand. Very, very heavy. It would hurt your toe if you dropped it on your toe. It's got this cool sliding open packaging like this. And I'm gonna be honest, the whole reason I bought it was for the packaging. I'm like, even if I don't like the blush inside, I can use this if I want to like Franken cream blushes together or create my own cream blush out of a lipstick or something. Like, I just thought this would be one of the coolest little compacts to have around. So for that, yeah, total 5 stars. I love the packaging. I admit I did think it was going to be bigger. It came in a much bigger box. When I opened it, I was like, oh, it's a small little pebble. But anyway, to the actual blush. So I picked up the shade Be Real, which I think is the only shade still available at Sephora. Last time I looked, I feel like the Lilah B stuff is clearancing out pretty quickly. But it's the shade I'm wearing across my cheeks and my nose. It's kind of a soft corally pink. I'm not usually too into coral, but this one is more pink than coral, so I can pull it off. But I'll give you a little swatch there. It is your classic kind of balmy but non-sticky formula. Yeah, like zero stick. I'm not like super obsessed with the formula, but I do really like the little packaging. I've been having a hard time just not sitting at my vanity, just opening and closing it. So anyway, that is fun. If you can get your hands on one of these, I think it's fun. The lipstick I'm wearing is from MAC. I finally picked up Velvet Teddy. So, you know, lipsticks look different on everybody. This looks so much deeper on me than I expected. I thought it would just be a kind of very light nude, but on me though, it has a lot more depth and I really like it. I think it is a great color. And this is my first time trying the matte formula from MAC. I think I like the matte formula from Charlotte Tilbury more. It's just not, it's a bit more creamy. I still wouldn't call this drying though. Right now my lips are very dry from being sick and mouth breathing. So don't look too closely at my actual lips. I know they're a little crusty, but it's not from the lipstick. I can see why the color is such a favorite. I really like it too. I really, really enjoy this color. So glad I picked that up at TJ Maxx. Let's talk about this lip gloss from Colourpop. This surprised me because so many people have been raving about this. This is the So Glassy lip gloss. I picked mine up in the shade No Joke. I'm just gonna quick put some on the back of my hand. First of all, to swatch it for you, but then also I'm gonna pick it up from my hand and put some on my lips just to give my lips some extra hydration. So that is what it looks like. It is very high shine, very glossy. I, however, do find it to be quite sticky, which I was so surprised. I hadn't heard anybody mention that. I'm not necessarily against a sticky lip gloss because often it means that it will stay on your lips more. But when I like full on opacity swipe this on, like I don't feel like I'm using too much. I find it to be very sticky, like will give you that strings between your lips type effect. So this is one that I definitely will apply sparingly to avoid that effect. So with all those things noted, however, it is very pretty. Just be aware, if you haven't tried one of these before, it is a sticky gloss. And last but definitely not least, I want to talk about the Enduring Love palette from Sydney Grace. So I bought this palette back in their July sale. So I've been hanging on to this without trying it for months. And the only reason is because it is a very cool tone color story. And I wasn't really into the color story at the time, but I knew I would be later in the year. I just knew I would. This has been on my wish list for several years at this point. Well, I'm finally ready to wear cool tones again. So I have been wearing this again all month long. And while I knew I loved Sydney Grace as a brand and I really love their formulas, this color story actually keeps surprising me. I feel like every time I use it, I get a different look than I was expecting. So I decided at first to go for it and just use the shades that I was most scared of. These ones over here, this kind of really deep purple over here. What I found with those, if I use a very fluffy brush, barely tap my brush in and then brush that over my lid, it creates the most creamy looking, very wearable color story that I can work with. If I just go in full opacity with these, it's a bit too much for me. Very, very jewel toned, but I knew that about myself going in, that I would either wear them very washed out over my lid or as liners. Anyway, today I am wearing this palette, just a very, very simple eye look I created using the shade Cherish through my crease, and I darkened it up a little bit with Robert, and then just a little bit of Devotion all over my lid. I'm telling you, these shimmers really pack a punch. If you just want a little bit of glimmeriness like I have going on, you barely touch your finger to the pan. Otherwise, it is very, very high impact. And yeah, you guessed it, that is my favorite shade in the palette. I like it because it doesn't lean too much any which way. It's not too pink, not too peachy. It's just a really, really good shade in this palette, since so many of the other shimmers are very, very high impact, colorful shimmers. And even if they're not colorful, like I said, they are high impact. This shade over here called Albert, hang on, I gotta wipe off my fingers so I can properly swatch that one. Okay, so Albert, very, very strong silver shadow with an interesting kind of violet base to it, which may be very difficult to see. But with that kind of purpley base on it, it makes it really, really cool toned. Like, I know silver is already cool toned, but it just makes it extra cool toned. Anytime you use that shadow in any look, it's going to make it very, very cool toned. The only shade I was actually surprised I wasn't a huge fan of, because it was one I was one of the most excited for, was this shade over here called Deanna. And this is like a very deep green. And while it's beautiful, the only reason I just wasn't that into it is just because it was even more grungy than I expected. Even when I tried to sheer it out with a brush, it was just really, really grungy. I mean, it's a gorgeous color, but I just have to use it so sparingly that it almost looks like I wasn't even wearing green. It just looks like something really dark on the outer corners of my eyes. That's just not a shade that I'll wear all over my lid. Where I was hoping to be able to get a green look from this palette. There is a very, very light silvery green over here called John. Beautiful. But again, on my eye, it doesn't really look green. It just looks more silver. Although when you like compare it to this one, you can see what I mean of how that's like a green silver and that is a purple light, like violet silver. Really cool. Really, really cool shades. Not necessarily shades I can pull off all the time, but unique to my collection and with the great Sydney Grace quality. I have found myself, even though like I went straight and I tried those shades out first, after that I have spent most of my time in the center of this palette using all the neutrals and then usually topping it off again with the shade Devotion. Another thing to keep in mind with Sydney Grace is a lot of times they're actually deeper. Oh, I just checked to make sure I was actually filming for a second. I'm like, have I been sitting here for 20 minutes talking to myself? Oh good, I'm so glad that you guys are with me. A lot of times the shades are actually deeper than look in the pan. So when I first went into this palette, I expected to put like Juliet through my crease, Juliet here, which worked out okay. It was just deeper than I expected. Turns out that Cherish down here is more of like my perfect crease shade. It is very different from anything else in my collection. I'm happy to finally have it in my collection. And I feel like every time I reach for it, I just get a totally different look out of this palette. So that is one thing I really appreciate about it. And I'm glad that I finally was able to give this the proper attention that it deserves. All right, I think that is everything from me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I really appreciate you guys watching and hanging out with me. I hope that you guys are all doing very well. Hopefully my family will be well soon. And as always, if you have tried any of these products, make sure and let us all know down below what you think of these products. Makeup is so subjective, so it really helps all of us out when we all share our experiences. So thank you so much for doing that. I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye, guys.